Hello, good night again, everybody, and welcome to our next Caribbean Linked 6 Black Box Artist Talk. Caribbean Linked is an amazing program that brings together artists from across all linguistic regions of the Caribbean to live and work together for 3 weeks, put on an exhibition, and share their work with you, whether you're in Aruba or further afield in other Caribbean islands. Tonight, we would like to start by thanking all of our sponsors for making this program possible and thanking Atelier 89, Fresh Milk in Barbados, and ARC Magazine for being the organizing entities behind this amazing program that happens every couple of years. Our first speaker tonight is John Reno Jackson from the Cayman Islands. He has taken courses in painting and drawing at the London Art Academy, taken part in international residencies and exhibitions, and his work is part of the national collection at the National Gallery of the Cayman Islands. Reno currently lives and works in Grand Cayman as a full-time painter, and I'm going to hand over to him now.
Hello. So bear with me 1 second. I'm trying to remember. This is me. Hi, my name is John Reno Jackson. I'm a Caymanian artist. Seem to be based in London. I'm moving to London in September, but majority of my career so far, I've been based in the Cayman Islands. And so I'm also like to shout out Ministry of Culture in the Cayman Islands, and also the National Gallery of the Cayman Islands and the Cayman National Cultural Foundation for giving me this opportunity to of this program. Also, shout out to everyone in the program, shout out to Elvis, shout out to all the other artists participating. It's been a very beautiful journey so far, and learning everybody's. So, okay, to start, 2019 is when I first started discovering the concept of making work and what it means to make artwork. It was a point in my life where I work at a cucumber farm. I did all kinds of random stuff, did floors, and something about having a job didn't really fit well for me. So I wanted to try to express how I felt, and so I started just making drawings at home. And over the period of a summer break, like between June and August 2015, and I went on a trip to the UK in that summer, and I just randomly found a school, said, "Hey, I don't really have a high school diploma, blah 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 blah. Will you let me in?" And they said, "Sure." So I started doing a foundational degree, like a month later in September. So it just was really random. Pieces that I made during my time there, it's primarily at that point in time, and still to this day, I've become obsessed with repurposing and reinterpreting found objects. So in this instance, I had found a bunch of canvases that were thrown away. They were about to throw all of these paintings away. They were from like a summer painting class or something, and a bunch of people had made these kind of like sketch type of paintings, like studies. And I really became drawn to the idea of like why you would throw these away and how could I subvert them into something else. So I should just rip them all in half and put some nails. How we present artwork. So for example, most time when you go to a gallery, it's about how you hang it, traditionally, and to put it at a sort of diagonal or something that isn't considered, I guess, appropriate, and then to performatively. So what I did was I took some ink and some hammers, and I kind of smashed it while it was in the wall. So the black sort of blob section in the middle, like organically formed and dripped off of the canvas. So even in my early stages, I was very bored and very interested in the idea of creating artwork that had to look like artwork. But I just didn't know the language that I was like how to direct that language yet. But these early examples will help to illuminate things further on in the slideshow. And then here's another thing. I made this in 2015. Been obsessed with performance work as well. I just think that it's such a way to actually express something that a painting or a photograph or something standalone. Like if you were to put a painting or a photograph by itself, it has a power. But when you add that physicality to something, I think it brings it to another level. Not only for the viewer, but also for the narrative of the work. So for me, back home around Christmas time, it's very common to find garbage everywhere because people will clean out their houses and they'll leave just stuff that they want picked up, like mattresses, bed frames, all these kind of things. So I started to think about the idea of taking apart someone else's things. You know, when I steal, am I stealing them? What am I doing? Like, because, and so I did my brother and I, he just photographed me, you know, smash X. That was pretty much it. The idea was just to explore, you know, I think, well, I'm a big fan of happenings and the Fluxus movement, and I'm very counter to having full narrative and full understanding of the artwork. I sometimes think that artwork's understanding and knowledge comes from the experience of making and doing, and so to make something where you set up parameters, like for example, get drawer, get axe, hit drawer, that's it. That organic process that you've set up, like that is the artistic parameter, that is the artistic process. And from the doing the act of that, you've created something in an organic way. So there's not necessarily a need to do a PhD thesis on why am I hacking a drawer. So yeah. And then this skips about 3 years. I didn't actually make any artwork between 2016 and 2018 due to like health reasons. So I just wasn't in the financial situation. So 2018, I resumed my career about 3.5 years ago, and I went to painting. I think at that point in my life, painting to me seemed more in line with what I felt I wanted to deliver with my work. Was really trying to find something more cohesive and also lucid at this time. So this painting is called Meditative, and it's a portrait. But I was trying to understand spatial awareness and structure and color relationship. I think majority of my work is about figuring out the structure and composition, and then removing from something that is overtly recognizable for me is important. I want people who look at my work to sort of see different shapes and different tones and different forms, you know. But this one was more comfortable. So this one is called Challenge a Coward, and I made this one about 3 years ago. I had a group show at a pop-up space that we created about 3 years ago. And this work was based on a Aesop's Fable story. I think it was called The Archer and the Gnat. And the story was basically that a lion felt invincible because he, you know, king of the jungle, all that kind of stuff. And the archer, all the other animals started running away past the lion, saying, "You got to run, you got to run." He said, "No, why would I run? I'm the lion, you know." And the archer, they said there's a guy who there's just things flying because they don't know what it is, and all of a sudden the lion starts getting hit by these things, arrows and all kinds of stuff. And the archer came to the lion and said, "Why didn't you run? You know, because I can still hit you from over here. It doesn't, you know." So it's like a different type of physicality. And I think that I was looking into narratives at that time to take away from more recreational, more figurative elements, to start to slowly pick them apart. And by using nonlinear storytelling and deriving subject matter from stories and pieces. So this work has a lot of undertones and studies from sketches that I made of the lion story. So there's like little bits of a lion, little bits of Archer. and it informed the geometry and the spatial shapes, because at that time that's what I was really focused on. This piece, uh, how are you guys all good? Is everybody good? Okay, cool. Okay. This piece, the soul who raised us, or Mama raised us, um, that's a double meaning on the soul who raised us back in the traditional Caymanian uh, upbringing. Enough to see it right in time for jobs, and the men will see and provide for the family, stack money. So that's the soul who raised us. But then mama patriarchal house, mama had to raise kids, basically. And so I made this for this group show called Island of Women, where we were discussing in the National Gallery. We were discussing what the role that matriarchal, what role women played during those times in Cayman Islands, and to this day, and the role that women play and shape to help to shape the foundation of society. And I wanted to create these two works in the same sort of vein as the last one, where it's using the sort of structure and play of shape to kind of give you a feeling of something, but not necessarily to alliterate it. Um, and yeah, it's in the National Gallery's permanent collection now, and it's one of my favorite pieces that I made at that point in time. This is another piece I made. I think I made that simultaneously in my studio, because if you look, they're fairly similar. This one's called The Boy and Nettle, and it's another one based off of an Aesop's Fable story. But this time I really pushed the references a lot further. I wanted to push them as far away from the original reference as possible. So this is when I really started to learn how to look for block shapes, as opposed to trying to find these organic forms. So yeah, it looks pretty good behind me. I can tell. And this is Overproof Gin and Bowery. I made this one in Portugal. So in 2020, right before COVID, I was fortunate enough to get to my residency program at Pata Studios in Barreiro, Portugal. And I met a lot of beautiful people. And it was the first time in my life that I had my country to do something like that. And yeah, it really changed my perspective on like what an exchange can be. So when I got, and actually coincidentally around the same time was when I was told about Caribbean Linked. So this is when I was supposed to do this, and then like that same summer we were all supposed to be here together. It's pretty interesting that I was experimenting with residency program time, but I think this one worked out pretty good. So I'm glad it took a couple of years. Yeah, this painting was made. This is when I started to move away from this sort of storytelling from um, like from actual stories and like novels and things, and towards my own sort of personal storytelling, where I would take my own found imagery and images I took like on my iPhone or my film photography camera or digital camera. And so this is a photo, a couple of photos. I started to try to figure out how to blend and layer multiple photos over each other to create this sort of effect and illusion. So when I would start to make paintings, I could kind of create this sort of hybrid space. And yeah, this painting is based on one of my friends from New York and a trip we did to Guggenheim, and then we went and got really drunk. The name Overproof Gin. It was a day, but I wanted to try to figure out how do we form our relationships with things that we do. You know, how do we relate an experience to a mood, to a feeling, to a color, to a shape, to a form. So this is when I started that sort of exploration into that, as opposed to just this story is telling me this idea and now I'm kind of transplanting it. So this is when I started to figure out how to make that world work. Okay, so one second, I need like an actual breath for this. Okay, so this one is a very, very long story. This is probably one of the most complicated things I've ever made, and included at the residency program I mentioned in Portugal. So when I got there, I was just gonna make these small little works, but I got pushed, as you do in a residency, to get out of my comfort zone and do something kind of spontaneous. So they just gave me about 8 feet. I don't know what it is in meters, or I don't know. It's like a massive 8 foot canvas, and they were saying just do whatever you want, and I didn't know what to do at first. So my friend Leonard, shout out Leonard, he's from Utrecht, and he taught me how to say lekker. So shout out him. Uh, yeah, he's a very cool guy. So I decided to make the whole entire thing about him. So I drew him and his van. So I don't know if you can see. Oh yeah. So this door thing here is the back of the same van. So the little wheel right there is like the wheel here. It's kind of crazy. And this figure in the middle is Leonard, and he was standing underneath a ladder. And so it was a really rough, quick sort of thing. I just used house paint, industrial paint, spray paint. Just tried to get some, try to not do what I normally do, which is take time, compositions, and make colors. And da, 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 da. So this one, I wanted to really just get out of my comfort zone entirely. And what ended up happening was, because this painting was so large, and the curator was like, where are we going to put this? And she's like, you need to put this on a wall? And I was like, no. So I ended up putting it flat on the ground. So it's like an 8 foot painting that literally lied on the ground, and you had to view it from standing on top, like over it. And I built a little tombstone out of all of the garbage that I had collected over my 2 weeks, 3 weeks in the residency program. I just wrapped it up in a bag and then put that on the top. So it was almost like a grave. And then I did a performance piece on this work where I poured out a beer on it. There was a cat sitting on it. I did like a little dance or something. And yeah, and the Portuguese Minister of Culture was there. It was a very strange, very surreal experience. I don't know how that even happened. I remember like I wanted to do it earlier, and they were like, "No, you have to wait till he comes. Wait till he." Like, "Go, go, 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 go." And I had to like go change and everything, and I came out like wearing like boxers, and the Portuguese Minister of Culture was just like, what is this? Like he thought why am I here? And so, anyways, and then at the end of it, I didn't know what to do with this work, so I gave it to Leonard, and he was like, "Oh, thanks." And then I said, "All right, what can we do with it now?" And then side of his van, and he drove all the way from Lisbon to Utrecht with this on the side of his van. So it became a moving gallery, and now it's probably rolled up somewhere in his studio. So I think it's a really interesting thing. And as you can see here, there says rum on it, because I poured rum on it too. So I forgot to put beer on it too. So am I good for time? Boom. Okay. So this is called Unidentified 2211. I got a grant from Catapult Foundation, no, Fresh Milk, Catapult, AFJ, and Kingston Creative, and it was for the Catapult program, I think. And they gave me a grant me during COVID times to fund a project. And for this one, as I failed to mention, I take photographs all the time. So photographs are a huge part of my process. And so, for example, I took that is being used in this, and basically this was like when I first started paintings of people and stuff. I would do these kind of color studies to kind of figure out where I wanted to place overall colors and the relationships. And I never really shown them to anybody, so I decided why not exhibit them in a way. At the point in time, and still to this point in time in my country, there's very limited access to experimental spaces or galleries. I thought, well, why not just use nature? I mean, it's free. Um, you know, well, if there's a gallery anyways, why don't I just make one? So I became obsessed with this ideology of taking my artwork after I had done this, because as you can see, this is outside. Realized that why do we need white wall galleries that are just westernized things anyways? I mean, I don't live in the UK or Europe, so I need to do that. I can put them in my bush in my backyard. And so I did put this one out in a park called Barker's public park, national park. It has like 4 different names, but um, the idea behind this project was to allow dissolve, allow nature to eat it. I wanted to see what would happen to artwork that is usually considered sacred, or oh my god, you can't touch this, or it's worth money, or I wanted to see it destroy itself. I was very intrigued with the idea of that. And so as you can see the weathering, it's starting to peel and pop, and peel and pop and fall apart. And they lasted until Hurricane Grace came and knocked them all down. But about 1 month into this project, people went over there and painted white paint because there's a lot of controversy around these works. People thought that I was murdering people and that this was my calling card or testament, and they were like buried there or something. It was a very bizarre moment. The local police got involved. Uh, um, yeah, and a lot of people defense, and they were like, what are you guys smoking?" like like I don't know. So and then this work ended up being put in the National Gallery's biennial show, just because of the whole conversation around what is appropriate, blah da 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 da. Then this piece is very important to me because it was the first that I had used silver thatch. And silver thatch, if you guys don't know, is like one of the national sort of iconography sort of things from my country. Like a thatch plat ribbon, but it's made from silver thatch, which is endemic to Cayman Islands. And during the early hundreds, it was pretty much the only form of income that we had. Um, it was like the strongest rope in the world. And until nylon came out, we were like the world's main supplier of boat rope. The boat rope was so strong and waterproof. And so my whole life, I've always like been around this material. And so for me, I wanted to figure out a way to a contemporary art practice. And stuff like that. But I wanted to know how could I push it further, because I did paint before, but it just never really like looked right to me. And so for me, I decided to glue them or with like a acrylic adhesive into a canvas and then paint on top of it. Me, I don't know. There's just something beautiful about the texture of it. It has like a nice sort of, I don't know, like a abrasiveness that I quite enjoy. All right. So, for example, this work. So this work is called Immortal or Alien to One Another, and there was 3 of them. So this one's Portal number 1, because I was obsessed with the idea that these works were like portals. I mean, it's kind of like this one. So when you look at it, you've got foliage and stuff, and then you've just got like an ocean. It's almost like you're looking through like a crack in time, where it's like this just sort of appeared, other than the stumps on the bottom. Just ignore those. But the art is kind of like getting push that second further, like creating a space that juxtaposes the natural environment in a way that is fun for the viewer, but also just challenging that, again, notion of what is correct presentation of fine art or whatever. And so this painting is, well, okay. So this is a very complicated thing to explain as well. It's part painting, part collage, part installation, part sculpture, part yeah. It's got a bunch of things going on. So basically, I bought an entire door and cut it into 3 parts. Okay. I bought a door, cut it into 3 parts, and took a bunch of my old paintings, cut them up, and nailed them into a wooden door and sealed them with resin so they'd be waterproof, and placed them outside the Botanic Park, the Gallery biennial show. And yeah, it was quite a strange experience. Public was kind of mixed at first. They're like, why? But then they started to come around to it, and I wanted to support the Botanic Park. It was suffering due to COVID and stuff, so I wanted to help boost the park and bring something to the park that people could take their kids to and stuff like that. But then the beauty of it is that it now becomes this sculptural object. And so it starts to blend the line disciplinary wise as to what exactly is it. And for me, I think that it comes full circle back to the earlier works I was making of repurposing and reusing old materials and formalistically blending different genres. So, for example, I had placed this one in a area that had dried out, and I knew that when it rainy season, because there's two seasons of Aruba, but because it's always it's always dry, so I don't know. But we have two seasons. We got rainy and we got dry. And so when it's dry, it's bone dry in the water in these ponds. And when it's rainy, it's like, it floods. So I knew this one would eventually flood with this cool effect where it looked like it was just sitting on water. Um okay, time. Around the end of last year, I went to New York for a program at New York Studio School, and it was a course on composition, and I was there for about 3 weeks, and really focused on figuring out compositional relationships. It was this really cool artist named Clint L. Steed, and what we focused on is the shape related to things and how to develop them with a foundation in drawing. So I really went backwards to more of a focus on drawing and what can form from the drawing. Because before it was more like I would abstract my drawings before I would make the painting. So you never really had the physical sort of reference. And so at this point, I had started painting portraits too, just for fun. I didn't really show them, but 6 months just doing portraits and this, portraits and this, portraits and this. Didn't do any abstract because I really wanted to focus on shape relationship. Like his jawline here is just a shape in my opinion, like to the way I look at it. And so I learned like, see, that's just an abstract shape in the corner where the blue is. So using this kind of language helped me to inform my recent show that's at the National Gallery right now. It's called The Heron Amongst the Storm, and it's up until August 12th. And these three works, I'll show them just in case I run out of time, are a culmination of everything that I've made so far. They're just traditional paint on canvas, as opposed to the more experimental works like these. But the main goal for these was to take drawings like these and really look for the structural areas, like this dark section in the top right here that I'm going around versus the white section here. You can start to see that language start to inform itself, like this white section here, or okay, like or this dark section here. And I'm really obsessed with the idea and the concept of how shapes relate to ideas, because we as humans, we're always looking for things we don't understand, things that we try to, we're like little computers. And so to play with shapes in a way that informs the viewer that it's something familiar is something to me that is important in making good abstract work. Otherwise, it's just formalism for formalism's sake. So, for example, does anyone see anything in particular in this painting? Not Claudio, because I think, or Justin, because they've already looked at it. Does anyone see anything that stands out immediately? The car? Yeah, exactly. Well, the car. So the car is here, and this is one of the paintings that everybody I've seen has seen this car. And to me, I think that's a really interesting thing because, for example, this one, if I ask you to see something, see, it becomes more. No, see, there's none of that in this one. So it's interesting to me how this one remained. These are completely illegible, and this one as well. So I think the language that I'm trying to oh yeah, everyone sees a skull, yeah, but there is a skull, but everybody sees a skull. I Everyone sees a turtle, like where this head is, and like a little turtle, and I'm like, I don't know. Anyways, I digress. This one? Oh, this one? Oh, right here? Yeah. Oh, right here? Yeah. Well, so for example, this painting was derived from a couple of of images. So in 2004, Hurricane Ivan hit my country and absolutely decimated it. And so a bunch of local journalists had photographs and everything. And I got access to the archive files. So I went through and I found pictures up from that time. And I created a sort of abstracted version of that. So if you're seeing people and you're seeing cars and you're seeing, things, it's because they came from the original image. But for me as well, I like the idea that I'm not necessarily using direct symbolism. I like the fact that people can look at the work and feel something in their own way, but also stick within the narrative lines of the work. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, Bra- yay!
Yay. Thank you so much, Reno. Do we have questions from the audience?
In one of the paintings, I think from Leonard, I think
Oh,
you have rum.
yeah. So I have rum.
Can you explain?
Yeah, so the rum aspect was because we were drinking and partying and hanging
Okay.
out in Portugal, and being from the Caribbean, drink a lot of rum.
Uh-huh.
So I had brought them rum, and we shared the rum, and somehow entire glass of rum on
Okay.
the work,
I think so.
and then I started thinking about that sort of relationship between a painting's lived experience,
Yeah.
which then when I started placing things outside like this to allow organic influence, like this. These ones swole up. So there was actually like water, like things for plants, like, and so this painting from swole up like this, and so it's just allowing nature and other people to. It's not sacred to me. Like someone spilling rum on my painting doesn't ruin my life. So I think that was kind of the fun of it. Yeah.
Title? Oh,
Mm.
the title, Big Toe.
Mhm.
It's very interesting because I have also a story
Oh.
of Dutch people
Mm.
about their big toe. I'm
Huh?
like, what? It was interesting.
Really?
Yes.
I need to learn that story.
Yes, later I will tell you about
Okay.
it.
Cool. Yeah, no, it was just a joke, inside joke about his toe. But yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Reno.
Hey, what's
Reno,
up?
what's up? The way you describe your methodology within your own work is just very fascinating, and also the concept and the ideas that you get from others or from your surroundings. Um, I don't know, I may have missed it, but is there also the kind of works that you have created that taps into your own subconscious or your own personal experiences?
Yeah, well, this one does. And then these ones do. So,
Yes.
for example, this painting, the reference images that I derived for this painting was a photo shoot that I did with my friend. She's a very sweet, like very like well put together, And then I went to then go do something for a newspaper, and I went to a guy's house who's the like polar opposite. He's like shirtless, tatted up, neck tats, jankily. Yes, actually in the Guinness Book of World Records for having like the most thongs on his roof, and he's kind of like a little crazy, but in a good way. And so I don't know. For me, that happened in this period of like 2 hours. So for me, like seeing both of those two things, and just I don't know, so I had to make a piece about it. So I kind of merged the two images I took of both of them, made like this sort of mangled and jangled sort of thing. But the guy who was in the image, he sells black coral, and black coral jewelry is like a thing where you get. Have you ever heard of black coral? Yeah. So he like would hand make black coral jewelry. So for me, it was just a very strange sort of experience, and I did a lot of self reflection, thinking about um, what 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 that day represented to me, because I think a lot of my stuff is about my journey from day to day, and kind of like I treat my works almost as if they're like a journal or a diary, so to speak. Not to be over embellishing of it, but for example, the colors I've chosen in these are based on the mood that I want to represent. So
Okay.
what Claudia was saying the other night about color psychology and stuff, I studied a lot of that too. And it's the idea of figuring out color relationships in relationship to the story you want to tell. So a lot of the colors that I've chosen in all of my works, it's about the mood that I want to create. So for me, I guess I don't subconsciously think about these things, but I guess I'm looking to connect my audience to their subconscious feeling as opposed to mine. Because at the end of the day, I don't make artwork for me, work for other people.
Because that's how, like, there's this external factor that you have created from your own perception of what you see, but also with the colors that you create, it's based on your own moods. That's also internal factors that you have combined with external factor. I find that very fascinating.
Donkey.
Nada.
Could you go to the drawing with the father and then the other drawing with the woman in the garden? Yeah. All right. And that's graphite. And then could you go to the woman in the garden one? That is also graphite.
Mhm.
Okay. I was curious as to whether any of these drawings are eventually abstracted into paintings or if they always remain drawings. Because I noticed that all of the paintings have charcoal usually as the initial sketch. And I was curious as to whether the drawings and the paintings were talking to each other.
That's a good question. Ooh, too close. Where's this popping in and out? Can you hear me? Can't even. Okay, okay. So it was like, all right. So, good question. The way I look at drawings are separate to paintings. Drawings to me are the most expressive form of art, because they have that, I don't know, that je ne sais quoi, like scratchy, like you feel it more. A painting is a disconnect between the fibers of the brush, the handle, the paint, and your hand. Whereas a drawing is like the graphite, your hand, just that's it. And you can really apply the pressure. So for me, I've always enjoyed keeping them separate. So for me, unless it's a charcoal drawing, those are the ones that I'm more experimental with. The graphite ones like these, they always stay like this. And in my recent show, I actually exhibited these alongside my paintings, which would be these paintings, because I wanted people to understand the sort of relationship from looking that you can get. So as you look at these, what shapes am I seeing, and then pulling them into an abstracted space, because abstraction is only just a different vision of reality. Because there's really three types of art: figurative, abstract, and non-representational. So as long as abstraction can be informed by figuration or reality, I think it can be strong. I think when people just start and stuff, that's when it gets kind of questionable. Because yeah, that's what I said. I don't like zombie formalism, just being like, I paint so I feel, like whatever. Like that's outdated. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Cool.
thank you.
All right, sweet.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question.
Claudio.
Hey, great presentation. So, I don't know if it's a question, but it's concerning the colors and shape. I know your work is very much around composition being the priority in your research, but I was questioning what would be your thoughts on color creating the shape instead of shape creating the colors, and thinking about that, how does that speak to you?
No, that's a good question. So warm versus cool, dark versus light, that kind of thing. For example, it's a good thing you asked this question and this painting was here. Um, these are two different tones of greenish blues, but it's like which one is warmer, which one feels bigger. And I think that like this yellow green, obviously this feels bigger, this feels more bold. And I think that the relationship between colors and the relationship between shapes are two different forms, but it's how you utilize them to create the overall narrative. So if you have certain things you want to pull out, you might want to figure it out. Like, for example, this one to the one that we were just looking at, because I focused all of the color into one side on this brown shape and then a big yellow shape, you know? But it's like this is a softer yellow shape. And then see, there's even bits of a darker yellow right here. And then, so yeah, it's an important thing, I think, to balance the two. Which one's talking about what, which ones you're trying to do this, like, so the middle is more electric, where the figure was. And then the outside is more muted and more warm, you know, warm versus cool. So yeah, it's a huge consideration for me as well. Before it's not random. Like, I don't just go, oh, I feel like I should paint this one or that one, no, because that's another thing that I want to move away from, I think, or move people away from, dissuade them from thinking like that. That abstraction is just you know, it's not like it shouldn't be. Abstraction should be calculated chaos, you know. So bom dia. Bon noche.
Bon noche. And thank you very much, John Reno Jackson from the Cayman Islands. We're going to take a quick break now and resume at 8 o'clock, where our next artist, Belisa Trupe from Guadeloupe, is going to tell us about her work. So thank you once again.
Yay.